Happy New Year to all Africans out there, and of course to our esteemed viewers. This is Report Desk Africa, where you not only get to see the latest story in Africa, but you also get to hear the insight and backstory. I am Nii Omani.
And of course, my name is Blessings Mosugu. And just like Nii mentioned, today is going to be really insightful because we'll be taking you through Africa and we'll be taking you into the stories happening around Africa. But before we do that, we'll take a look at our African headlines now, and Benga will help us do that. Hello, Benga.
Hi, Benga.
Hi, thank you very much, Blessings and Nii. Happy New Year to you guys.
Happy New Year to you, Benga. All right, so what do we have on the news today?
Ghana has just been appointed to the United Nations Security Council. In line with the membership, flag raising ceremony was held at the United Nations to signify the official admission of Ghana and 4 other countries that were elected last June to start their tenure. Staying in West Africa, the Nigerian government is planning to downsize the civil service. The Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, explained that the downsizing is aimed at cutting the cost of the government's recurrent expenditure. Staying in Nigeria, the federal government has declared bandits as terrorists. This comes after the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, gazetted a court judgment that ordered the government to make the declaration. And staying in West Africa, a bill introduced in the Senegalese parliament meant to toughen existing laws against homosexual people has been rejected. Under existing laws, homosexuality is punishable by up to 5 years in jail. Kenya's Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Affairs, Rachel Omamo, has praised China for its efforts in helping the East African country fight the COVID-19 pandemic. Speaking on Thursday at a press conference between both countries, Omamo says China donated 200,000 doses of Sinopharm vaccines to Kenya. In North Africa, at least 19 top political figures have been referred to the correctional chamber of the Tunisian Court of First Instance for electoral crimes. The personalities, including President of Tunisia's Ennahda Party, Rached Ghannouchi, ex-President Monsef Marzouki, former Prime Minister Youssef Chached, amongst others, were indicted for electoral misconduct. Now, from the north, we move down south to South Africa, where the Minister of Justice and Correctional Service, Ronald Lamola, has condemned the attack on the Constitutional Court buildings. And Wednesday, a 36-year-old suspect allegedly went on a rampage and smashed the windows using a hammer at the court in Braamfontein, South Africa. We continue with our continuous coverage of the COVID-19 pandemic across Africa. In East Africa, Ethiopia's Ministry of Health recorded 3,779 new COVID-19 cases in the past 24 hours, taking the nationwide tally to over 436,000. And in East Africa, the Ugandan government has now withdrawn mandatory COVID-19 vaccination for all passengers using public transport. Moving to West Africa, the Nigerian Center for Disease Control in the past 24 hours reported 856 new COVID-19 cases across 19 states and the Federal Capital Territory. The health agency also reported 5 additional COVID-19 related fatalities. We head to Central Africa, where Burundian authorities have expelled 12 Rwandans, including women and children, after refusing to get the COVID-19 jab. The Rwandans spent not less than 5 days on the Nyakarama Hill in Kirundo province in northern Burundi. South Africa has recorded more than 11,000 new COVID-19 cases and 110 deaths in the past 24 hours. This means the country has over 3 million confirmed infections and 91,561 fatalities since the start of the pandemic. In North Africa, the Egyptian Ministry of Health reported 803 new COVID-19 cases in the past 24 hours, bringing the nationwide tally to over 389,000 since the outbreak began in February. And a business, South Africa's Rand weakened early on Thursday as minutes of the United States Federal Reserve's December meeting signaled quicker interest rate hikes, a dent in sentiments for riskier assets. The Rand traded at 15.9450 against the dollar, 0.19% weaker than its previous close. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, recently shared its forecast for projected gross domestic product growth in some African countries. Some of the countries include Seychelles, Rwanda, Mauritius, Niger Republic, and Benin. And that's all on Africa Headlines. Back to Blessings and Nii on research on RDA.
All right, thank you very much for that, Benga. That was really insightful.
Yeah.
Do you have a great show? And I look forward to watching it too.
Certainly.
All right, thank you. Well, just like we earlier mentioned, a lot is happening in Africa, just like it is around the continent of the world. But today, like we mentioned, this is Report Desk Africa, and we'll be taking you through the happenings in Africa. And today, our major focus will be on these reports. We'll be looking at Sudan protests following Prime Minister HAMDOCK'S resignation. We'll also be looking at the fire outbreak in South Africa, the Parliamentary House in South Africa, and finally, we'll wrap up with the recent MAGODO land dispute that's in Lagos State, Southwest Nigeria. So stay tuned, don't go anywhere. This is Report Desk Africa, and we'll be back with more insight.
Glad to have you stay with us. It's still Report Desk Africa, and we'll start up today's program in East Africa, where protests against military rule in Sudan have continued, even after the Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok resignation a few days ago. Now, Hamdok was reinstated to help the transition back to civilian government after the army staged a coup last year. Let's take a look at this report.
Many Sudanese have taken to the streets in the capital city of Khartoum following the recent resignation by Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok, the first person to hold such position after the 2018 Sudan revolution. His departure remains a huge concern to the people as they believe it is a great loss to the country. Demonstrators in Sudan's capital, Khartoum, have continued to chant slogans and solidarity songs demanding an immediate transition to civilian rule.
أهداف لازم تتحقق. عندنا ناس قتلوا في البلد دي وأي زول نقط الدم من الشعب السوداني لازم يتحاسب عليها. عايزين دولة قانون، ما دولة زي الدولة اللي بتاعت الميليشيات. دولة قانون تقدر تحفظ لك حقك، تحفظ لك حق وطنك. نحن عايزين السودان لقدام.
While Sudanese protesters kick against the military takeover, security forces fire tear gas while closing major roads and streets in an attempt to disrupt anti-coup demonstrations.
استقالة السيد حمدوك ما حد أثر على رأي الشارع كثير لأنه ما بني على باطل فهو باطل والانقلاب من الأول هو باطل فالشارع لسه مطالبه واحدة وموحد تحت راية لجان المقاومة بمختلف الأماكن بمختلف الطوائف بمختلف الثقافات.
For how long will these anti-coup protests continue in Sudan? Observers, the African Union, international communities, among others, are watching with keen interest. Time will tell. Omolola Ololade reporting for News Central.
That was a report on the current unrest in Sudan. Now, there is no doubt there's been a lot of agitation in the country with Abdallah Hamdok stepping down and then the discord in power sharing. That's been a lot. It's been a rough month or a couple of months for the country. And so today we'll be joined on Report Desk Africa by our correspondents, our East African correspondent, Abdinor Nuri, to discuss what exactly is going on in the country. Hello, Abdinor.
Hello, and a very good evening to you.
Good evening to you.
Good evening, Abdinor. You're welcome on the program.
Amazing, and it's glad to be able to speak about issues affecting our East African region and basically reflecting on our continent.
All right. Thank you. Now, Abdinor, you have been following this report really closely. We've seen that the protest has persisted despite the Prime Minister Hamdok's resignation. Are we going to say that this is a sign that the pro-democracy movement in Sudan is undeterred and unstoppable, even as its short-term hopes, which faded on Sunday following the resignation? So are we really going to say that this is like, there is no stopping the Sudanese people in their fight for democracy?
Well, and that call for handing over of power to the civilian rule by the Sudanese people also received a major boost today with the resignation of the Supreme Court Judge of Sudan, Abdallah Zumrawi, who said that he won't be able to serve in a situation which doesn't tolerate democracy and freedom for the Sudanese people. But on the sad note, we've also seen the African Union also expressing concerns about the situation in Sudan and suspending Sudan from the African Union until the establishment of a civilian-led transitional authority, which is the only way they stated for Sudan to be able to get back on track as the 3-year transitional period comes to a close in July this year.
Abdul, let me hold your thought on that. Now, these same people who are seeking an agreement now, they were the one who begged, or I won't say begged, who spoke to the military to take over from Bashir. That was in 2018. Now, the military has taken over and they're ruling and they're asking for power sharing. Is there any more to this than that we don't know? What are the words on the street? Because the demands of these protesters change with time. What are the words on the street in Sudan?
Well, what the demonstrators are calling for in unison is the handing over of power to civilian authority since the resignation of Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok. And the other thing in relation to this situation is that the demonstrators have joined hands from different parts of the country, from Bahri, Omdurman, and Khartoum, despite even the internet being disconnected in some of the places where the demonstrators have been organizing themselves, thronging to the streets in droves and thousands. But despite that, the demonstrators are only calling for handing over of power to civilian authority. But Abdel Fattah el-Burhan, the commander-in-chief of the Sudanese army, he is none of that, including calls for dialogue from the Troika, composed of the United States, the United Kingdom, the Norway, and the European Union.
I remember the US saying they can only at least work with the prime minister, the ex-prime minister actually, to get, now that that dialogue line is off the table, is there any hope that anything at all that has to do with civilian rule will be back to this country?
Well, the demonstrators in the streets, as they have been saying, power to the people. The statement remains the same from all stakeholders in Sudan, even if the commander-in-chief of the Sudanese army, Burhan, doesn't hear none of that. But the key issue here is that the situation in Sudan at the moment, there are two positions. The first position being held, the stand being held by the military is that we don't want dialogue. We're waiting for elections in July. And until then, we're not going to engage anyone in relations to power. But on the other hand, the civilians supported by the people, the demonstrators who have been relentless since 2019, which also led to the appointment of former Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok, is that power must be handed over to the people, because the same efforts that brought in the civilian rule, unfortunately, which ended with the resignation of Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok, is the same momentum they say they want to see their Sudan to be maintained.
Right. Abdinor, now we've seen that the people are more action-oriented this period. Even the military is more action-oriented this period. But we also see that the international bodies are using this wait-and-see approach in, tackling the entire crisis. Do we now say that it is time for the international bodies to take action, saying that it has actually escalated and that Hamdok has just resigned?
Well, at the moment, as I had stated earlier, we've had the US, the EU, the UK, and other foreign partners, first of all, who are really saddened by the decision taken by the former Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok to vacate his position. But at the same time, as the African Union has taken an action suspending the Republic of Sudan in all AU activities, is that these are some of the efforts being made to try and pressurize the Sudanese military to hand over power to the civilians and to demilitarize the authority in Sudan. And of course, we expect many more since the demonstrations has been gaining momentum. Today, we've also seen, even despite the disconnection of the internet, mobile phone interruptions in different parts, Twitter hashtags related to Sudan, power to the people, both in English and Arabic. It is expected the pressure might reach some level that it won't be manageable to the Sudanese army even before July, as they state.
Abdinor, talking about pressure, would we say that HAMDOCK was under pressure for him to resign? Because now the people want that power sharing deal that they've always talked about, or better still, they want democracy. So now is supposed to be time for HAMDOCK to stay, but he resigned. Would we say that he was under some sort of pressure that we don't exactly know about, or what exactly is going on there?
Well, if we recall a few months last year, in the month of October, we've had Sudanese security forces putting Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok and other senior members of the civilian leadership under arrest. And with the dissolution of the transitional government, we've seen the situation was really, the atmosphere was unfavorable for operations for Hamdok and the transitional authority. We've also had, with the rise in mass protests and threats, and of course we know behind the scenes and behind the limelight, we've known there were lots of pressure and threats. And considering that Prime Minister, now former Abdullah Hamdok himself, is someone who was used to operating in a more professional, in a more formal and peaceful manner, having seen himself as an economist and undergoing all that stress with his life in danger, that of his family, the officials who was working under him. Therefore, when he was taken to an undisclosed location, it was really a matter of concern for the entire globe, considering the fact that the reason why he was brought to that position was to see a better future for Sudan. But we believe that it was an unusual environment which he found it unbearable to serve the people of Sudan. And that is why we have protests ongoing now, both against his the situation that led to the resignation of the former prime minister and the control of the country by the military.
Hopefully Sudan gets rest, at least, so that the economy can come back to normal and the people there can get a better livelihood. Thank you, Abdinor, for joining us on the show today.
Thank you, Abdinor.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so we move to Cape Town in South Africa, where a fire that gutted the country's parliament was finally extinguished. An unkept suspect appeared in court. Since the fire happened, South Africans are struggling to understand whether the blaze was an act of sabotage, negligence, or simply crime of opportunity. And the president, Cyril Ramaphosa, had this reaction.
This is devastating news. It's a terrible and devastating event, particularly after we gave the Arch what I would call the best send-off yesterday. Yesterday was a day crowned with celebration, a day crowned with sending off our beloved Archbishop, and to wake up to the devastating news of the burning down of the National Assembly or Parliament is just really a terrible setback to what we were basking in yesterday. It does seem like the sprinkler system did not work as it was supposed to, but their appearance and their coming here has saved a very important national asset of our government. This is a national key asset. Of course, we are still going to go into what caused the fire, and the fire having started in the old assembly, how it then moved to the National Assembly, is something that will still be investigated. I believe somebody is being held right now and they are being questioned, but we need to go a lot deeper. Had they not responded in the 6 minutes that they tell me they responded with, I think we would be talking about the National Assembly and the Council of House of Provinces being in ashes, complete ashes.
That was the South African President Cyril Ramaphosa giving his speech on the parliamentary fire. That really was a devastating turn of event, from laying the Archbishop to rest to waking up to a fire in the parliamentary building. Now, there are so many questions begging for answers in that, in the whole scenario. And members of parliament held a virtual meeting for more than 3.5 hours on Tuesday. Lawmakers echoed concerns raised by the public. And these concerns are, first of all, were maintenance and safety protocols in the building too lax? I mean, if there was safety protocol in the building, was it supposed to escalate to that level? Also, did the sprinklers fail? And why has the Parliament's Protection Services been left without a permanent head since 2015? Because as we understand, since 2015, there has not been a permanent head for the Protection Services. And also, has the police and prosecutors found the actual culprit? Now, these and many more are questions in the minds of the people begging for answers. And of course, we are going to be doing justice to that here on Report Desk Africa. Joining us to discuss that is Diane Hawker, our South African correspondent. Thank you so much for joining us, Diane.
You're welcome, Diane.
Thank you.
Welcome on the show. All right, now, Diane, talking about the parliamentary building fire, we understand that the fire was supposedly caused by a vagrant. And, this is where the question comes in. What interest exactly would we say that the man has in the parliamentary building? Or would we say that there is more to that than we see?
I think there's a lot of questions, more questions than there are answers at this point. We saw the arrest of that gentleman by the name of Zandile Mafe earlier in the week, and immediately there were some questions about why would someone set a fire at Parliament and then wait around for several hours to be arrested. It seems that he was found basically sleeping in the vicinity of Parliament after the fire broke out. And we still have to see more information from the NPA as to why they have charged him. One of the interesting things, though, that was revealed in the court proceedings was that he was found in possession of an explosive device. And this is one of the charges that's been brought against him by the National Prosecuting Authority. Unfortunately, they haven't said what that explosive device is, but indications are that when they return to court on Tuesday for the bail application, they'll give a bit more information to the court as to what it was that was in this gentleman's possession. And also the question of whether he is indeed a vagrant or not is also one that needs answers, because the lawyer who represented him in court indicated that he isn't a vagrant, that he does actually have a home in one of the South African townships, one of Cape Town's townships called Khayelitsha. It's an informal settlement area, but he does seem to have some kind of home there. And some of my colleagues actually went to that residence and they spoke to the neighbors and they said, yes, he does actually live in Khayelitsha. So there's a lot of questions around what is actually true when it comes to this incident.
Diane, let me narrow this down. Now, there are so many conspiracy theories around these all issues. Now, apart from having concerns about the suspect that burned down the parliament, don't you think the timing of the fire is also to be questioned? Now, this is not the first time fire is happening. There's a library, a Jaga library in South Africa that was also set ablaze, and there were a lot of historical records lost. Now, Ramaphosa also said it, that so many records were also lost in this fire. Do you think there might be other reasons? I understand that the president just received a state capture of a report about the ex-president, that's Jacob Zuma. Now, is there any truth in these theories? What have you heard that is true? And also, we heard that the person currently in custody was seen with a bomb. Is that true?
Yes, that's the explosive device that I spoke about earlier. Now, we're not sure whether it was a bomb, but the NPA has said it's an explosive device, although unfortunately they didn't explain further what do they mean by that. I mean, an explosive device could be anything, even an aerosol canister can ultimately be used as an explosive device. So we're definitely going to need to hear more on what exactly that was. But in terms of the timing, I think what has made people very suspicious is, as you are saying, the release of the state capture report was meant to happen just a few days after this fire broke out. And also that the fact that there are various factional battles within the ruling ANC, where there are subtle and not so subtle threats that are being made against the government. Now, you'll remember there was the July unrest that happened, and some of the instigators of that unrest basically made a threat to say that South Africa will be made ungovernable. And some people are seeing this as part of a broader attack on South Africa's institutions. You'll see that there was also someone who was arrested yesterday regarding a breaking of windows at the Constitutional Court, which is in Johannesburg, and questions being raised as to why an ordinary member of the public would just go around and break the Constitutional Court's windows.
Diane, speaking of an ordinary member of the public, now I could recall the EFF, that is the Economic Freedom Fighter, at the time we're calling for a new building, a new parliamentary building. Now, would we say this is somewhat an inside job? Because how do you set, and you know, Ramaphosa said then that the cost of creating a new parliamentary building is too much, and they created an extension in the same compound. Now, this extension has been set on fire. How do you set up a parliamentary building? How do you set it up on fire without having an insider? The sprinkler system weren't even working. Do you think this might be an inside job?
What I do know for sure is that there are a lot of poor sort of practices when it comes to security at Parliament. Parliament is a national key point, and it's supposed to have been well protected. There's supposed to be security as well as police at the entrance. And it seems like on this particular weekend, there were no security personnel in the building. There's also some recent reports that were saying that fire doors that were set up in Parliament, which was supposed to block any fire from spreading from one section to the other, that those fire doors were not functioning at an optimal level. So conspiracy theories aside, at the very least, the leadership at Parliament does have a lot of explaining to do about their processes and whether they had adequate security in place, as well as whether they had adequate sort of anti-fire mechanisms in place. And the indications at the moment seem to be that they didn't have these mechanisms in place. In fact, there was a 2018 report that flagged a lot of health and safety issues in Parliament, saying that the building was not up to code. And it doesn't seem that anything has been done by Parliament between 2018 and 2021.
Okay,
and that's something that we know
Diane,
for a fact.
Let's still talk about the suspect that was arraigned in court. Now, there are so many conflicting details about that man. Now, some people say he's a vagrant, but you say that some of your colleagues went there and found that he actually has a home somewhere. And some other people, and his lawyer said it was a mistaken identity. How does someone find himself in a place with an explosive, I mean, supposedly, and still be a mistaken identity? Now, with all of this, different opinions, do you think that there would actually be enough evidence to carry out proper investigation as to what exactly happened and who caused that fire?
I think there will be enough evidence because there are CCTV cameras in Parliament, and Parliament has indicated that even though the building was burnt, there is a backup system that should have retained some of that footage. Unfortunately, because the fire continued for several days, the investigators who were meant to go onto the scene earlier in the week actually didn't go into Parliament as expected because the fire reignited and carried on burning for a third day. So there are still a lot of questions that everyone has, even us as journalists. And we're hoping that during the bail application on Tuesday, some of those questions will be answered, because usually when there's a bail application, the investigating officer has to give some initial information about the case, and they'll have to give some initial information about what they found out about the suspect.
Thank you very much, Diane, for helping us dissect that and giving us more insight Thank you for joining us.
Thanks a lot for joining us, Diane.
Thank you.
All right, this is still Report Desk Africa, and we just talked about the parliamentary building fire, and hopefully, you know, the proper investigation is carried out and we know what exactly caused the fire. We'll be coming back shortly. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, you've not missed so much, but you can catch up and watch online after the show. Now, we've talked about the Sudanese unrest, and we've talked about the South African parliament fire. And now we're going to Nigeria. Tensions remain high over Nigeria's Supreme Court judgment in a wide expanse of real estate known as MAGODO Phase 2 estate in Lagos, southwest Nigeria. This follows continuous presence of over 50 armed officers of the Nigerian police in the estate area, bent on enforcing the judgment. And let's take a look at this report.
Residents of MAGODO Phase 2 estate in Lagos State, southwest Nigeria, are protesting the presence of over 50 armed policemen in their estate. The management early Tuesday shut the 2 gates leading into the estate for incoming vehicles and persons. Although residents were allowed out of the estate intermittently, the closure led to the disruption of vehicular movement. They queried the presence of the policemen who were said to have been in the estate since last month.
We have been under siege for the past 2 weeks. The police, they mill around, they are tired, they've not gone home. No Christmas, no New Year with their families, and they are restless. Every evening, every morning, they walk up in 2s, 3s, and I'm afraid.
This comes barely 2 weeks since the last lockdown in which the Lagos state government promised it won't happen again. It, however, seems the Lagos state government is no more in control.
Can you call your superior in Abuja that you need to deactivate and need to leave Lagos now, please? Your Excellency, sir, with due respect, sir, you can call them directly, sir. It is not my duty to call because I'm too low to do that, sir.
Residents are worried the value of land and property in the estate will drop, with some beginning to ask if the government can be trusted, since the lands were acquired legally and have government-approved documents as backing.
They got a ruling from the Supreme Court. I don't have issues with that, but they should resolve that with Lagos State government, not with the people who acquired from the Lagos State government. That's all.
Now what has happened here, we drop the value of property. It has who will come in now? Significantly, who is coming here to buy any property? Exactly. Nobody is coming to buy. Because you will say, I'm not safe. Leave your thing for you. Absolutely. So everybody has a stake in this.
There are, however, rumors that the MAGODO Landlord Association is backed by high-profile individuals in the country, hence the lingering presence of policemen in the estate. Ni Omani, News Central.
Now that was a report on the MAGODO land dispute in Lagos State, southwest Nigeria. This land tussle that started in 1970s and early 1980s is what has led to a face-off. And this obviously seems to be emasculating even the constitution, that's the judicial system. Now, in response to the police threats, the estate management ordered the closure of the estate gate in protest against the alleged planned demolition of property in the estate. The residents who say the attempt by the police stems from a misinterpretation of the Supreme Court judgment are also calling for their total withdrawal from the estate. Now, Ni, you were there, you had an entire report about it and you covered it. So I'm going to throw this question at you, right? Okay. First of all, what exactly is the main cause of that unrest? Because now we know that there was a land dispute from 1970s, 1980s. But what exactly started this unrest?
You see, I covered the first closure of this estate and I covered the second closure as well. And I could say for a fact that there's some findings there that that are still not open to people, and they might not understand it. So let me quickly give a backstory. Now, in the 1970s and early 80s, the government approached the owners, the ancient owners of this particular area, that they want to use this part of their land for building purposes, for public purposes, and they agreed. But as time went on, they saw that the government wasn't keeping to his word, allegedly wasn't keeping to his word, and they were not satisfied, and they went to court. Now, they got a judgment, a Supreme Court judgment in 2012, and the Supreme Court judgment says they should be allocated over 549 lands. Now, they didn't say, the Supreme Court judgment didn't say where, it didn't say how, but it said they should be allocated to them by the Lagos State government. And now they've taken laws into their hands. Earlier, that was late last year, around December, they came with police officers into the estate and wanted to pull down buildings, marking the buildings and getting ready to demolish them. Now, wow. The dicey part of this is they are doing this with the help of the Nigerian police.
Exactly. That exactly is my dilemma.
They are doing it with the help of...
I was going to ask you
and
that.
The part remains that where the police officers are staying in the estate, the police camp, the police post where they're staying was built by the MAGODO resident. Now, let me explain this. There is the MAGODO Landlord Association. There is the MAGODO Resident Association. The MAGODO Landlord Association are the people who own the land back in the days. The MAGODO Resident Association are the people who bought the land from the state government with illegal documents for backing. And the fact that the police are involved in this matter as what has set a lot of things under control.
Exactly
Some are saying
why
that
I said that there is definitely an emasculation, because it feels like it's crippling the judicial system.
It's really, you know what? Let's watch this sort. Let's watch this this I call it some kind of disagreement between the Lagos State government and one of the police officers. Let's have that sort.
Residents were allowed out of the estate intermittently. The closure led to the disruption of vehicular movement. They queried the presence of the policemen who were said to have been in the estate since last month.
We have been under siege for the past 2 weeks. The police, they mill around, they are tired. They've not gone home, no Christmas, no New Year with their families, and they are restless. Every evening.
We'll bring back the report to you subsequently. We apologize for that. Now, when that sort was supposed to play, what we're supposed to see was a detachment of the Nigerian police from the IGP claimed having a discussion with the chief security officer of Lagos State, telling him he can't call off his men from the estate.
Right.
And it's funny because the buildings have been marked. The police officers have come with the MAGODO Landlord Association to mark buildings and demolish buildings. Now, they are coming even without uniform, just moving around their estate. Nobody knows them. Nobody can identify them.
According to the clip I saw on News Central earlier, I was made to understand that he couldn't even account for the number of people that that came with him.
He couldn't. Okay, we have the sword now. Let's listen to the sword.
Can you call your superior in Abuja and tell them that the governor is here and I'm the chief security officer, and that you don't have any business being in my state right now, and that I want you to disengage forthwith from here.
Thank you very much, sir. Your Excellency, sir. I'm not here on my own orders.
That's why I'm asking you to make a phone call and tell them, your superior, that I'm here, standing in front of you. Make that phone call.
Thank you, sir. I'm here on instruction of the Inspector General of Police to the AGF, sir. And that is why I'm here. I'm too small or too low to call them. Your Excellency, sir, with due respect, sir, you can call them directly, sir, so that they will ask us to leave.
So Inspector General of Police ask you to come.
I'm here on instruction of Inspector General of Police.
Isn't this just awkward?
That was blatant refusal.
I mean,
from the chief of security, he couldn't even order the IGP or his representative.
Isn't this just awkward? Now, and these police officers are there they are escorting the people from the MAGODO Landlord Association into the estate, marking buildings. They could even bring in anyone, and they are not. Most of them are not even in uniform. So these are some of the things. In fact, when I walked into the street at Alayo, Ogun, Dano Street, at Bajo, Abdulkadris, these are some of the streets in the MAGODO area. Over 100 houses have been marked already for demolition. Now, anything could even go wrong in the estate. We're not trying to take sides, but what we're saying is, if this is happening, then what is really the security state
in the country?
In the country.
Exactly.
In the country. What is the security state in the country? The police come in trickles, having a formation there. They allegedly are trying to demolish the building, bring in the people of the street, working with some sets. Now, the problem is even that the police are not from the state government. Allegedly, they said they are from the IGP team. And the governor, if we had listened to the sort over time, the governor said he called the Inspector General of Police, and the Inspector General of Police said he's not aware. So where did the police come from? Now, these are the questions that people keep asking. Although they've met, actually, they met. Can we have the communique on screen? They had an agreement, and they had a stakeholders meeting where the MAGODO Landlord Association, the police command, and also the MAGODO Residents Association. And these are some of the agreements that the committee set up by the state government is to resolve. That the committee set up by the state government is to resolve the MAGODO dispute, chaired by the Honorable Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice, and is just to meet with the judgment creditors. The judgment creditors are the people fronting for the Shangisha MAGODO Landlord Association. And the second one is the committee is also to identify how the available plots of land are to be assessed and whether any infrastructure development is necessary to assess the land. We have more. And the third one says, upon identification of available and accessible land, the state government is to immediately allocate the land to 549 people.
Well, now these recommendations really look feasible, and hopefully, if they can follow through with it, there definitely will be a resolution to this problem.
Certainly.
Nee, thank you so much for doing it. You were so passionate about that report.
I was there.
And you did a good job. Thank you so much for that insightful report. Now, you're still watching Report Desk Africa, and we'll be back again with one more story for you. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us here, I can as well say you've missed quite a lot. And of course, no need to worry. You can watch it on YouTube and watch a recap of the story. We want to look into our crystal ball now and tell you some of the stories that might be hitting into next week. One is the Kenya crisis. LAMU has witnessed several attacks in the past with residents suspecting Islamic Shabab rebels. Now, attacks have been linked to local and land disputes.
Also, in the forecast segment, we understand that Nigeria has declared bandits as terrorists. Now, this has been an ongoing tussle, whether or not bandits are actually qualified to be called terrorists. And there was a time they were even doing an orientation for bandits that were arrested. And, there's been a lot of back and forth about that. But right now, the government has declared that bandits are now terrorists, and the federal government also described Terrorism Act as illegal. So the appropriate punishment will definitely be meted on those who are found guilty.
Personally, I feel this is coming at the right time because most of the roads, I am in Nigeria, we're in Nigeria, and most of the roads in Nigeria are almost unpliable due to security issues.
I remember not too long ago, we were talking about traveling or not traveling for the festive period because of fear of banditry and terrorism.
The issue remains that the north and the northeast is the most hit part of the country and has become a menace and witness to be nipped in the bud. And we thank God that this is coming at the right time. And hopefully now they can take more action, because when they were bandits, so there were limited confrontations probably they could do. But now that they have been declared terrorists, let's see what we did.
I was watching the news on News Central earlier, and there was a guest who came in to explain that, just like you said, before now there were punishments meted on bandits who were not qualified, so to say, to be called terrorists. But now that they are, everything is everything, bandits are now terrorists. We now know that, okay, whoever is guilty of terrorism, whoever is guilty of banditry are all guilty of the same thing. So yes, hopefully the punishment will be meted
Hopefully, we say it's been an exciting show today. And of course, if you're just joining us, I've told you can have a recap and watch the recap on our YouTube page. The show is now 1 hour, which means we have more time to give you more insightful information and give you an elaborate story, idea, and story information that you can know and get to know about Africa.
Yeah, and don't forget to follow us every week on Report Desk Africa. You can also join in on the conversations on our social media handles, News Central TV, watch on Avo TV, Star Times, Free TV, YouTube. We're always there to give you the latest reports in Africa.
It's really going to be an exciting year.
Oh, it really is.
Thank you for joining us on the show. That will be the end. Goodbye.
My name is Blessings Musugu.
And I am Ni Omondi.